remember that umbilical artery Doppler is essentially a placental rather than a fetal Doppler, providing information on the fetal side of the placenta. Flow velocity measurements performed at this level represent downstream resistance, namely those at placental stem and terminal villi. Primary villus maldevelopment with evidence of reduced placental villus stem arteries and small fibrotic and hypervascular terminal villi have been shown in pathological studies, blah, blah, blah. So what they're saying to you, you know that you've got villi on the maternal side and you've got villi on the external side. A villi is where things are absorbed through. You know, same as in our gut, like in our bowel. So on the bowel of the celiac, the villi go when you have gluten. And so you can't get absorption of things across those villi. So things like your glucoses can't get across the villi and it reduces the oxygen diffusion. So what they're saying is when they're looking at the umbilical artery Doppler, they're looking at between the placenta and the fetus at that ability to flow based on the villi, and they can pick up that there's hypervascular villi. So if you've got hypovascular, means not a lot of flow. Okay, so if you've got not a lot of flow, then you don't have a lot of diffusion of oxygen. While primary villus maldevelopment might set the stage for the development of fetal growth restriction, the placenta remains dynamic to change. So prolonged reduction in maternal intervillus perfusion secondary to abnormal spiral artery conversion. When would that happen? When do we know that there's a maldevelopment of the spiral arteries? Preeclampsia. So we don't necessarily know why. We know that that's a theoretical component, but we're not really sure of the etiology. We just know that their spiral arteries are maldeveloped, and that's why you end up with growth restriction and reduced flow. Results in reduced oxygen delivery to the fetal surface of the placenta. This results in sustained vasoconstriction of the stem villi, increasing resistance to flow and causing vascular hypertrophy. Clinically, this is seen as progression from increased Doppler resistance, followed by reduced flow, absent flow, and ultimately reverse flow in the umbilical artery waveform. So when they do those studies, and he'll show you on the screen, and it's actually really quite interesting, and he shows you like the reverse flow as well, where you kind of, it's like having a valve that doesn't work in your heart, and you get that backflow from your valve. So obviously the baby is going to be impacted, and you're going to have a CTG that's abnormal if it can't get oxygen delivery.
We used to look at these when we were doing our reviews when I was working in a labour ward at team meetings to make decisions around the induction or not. And try and prioritise, you know, when we were busy and there would be issues and that sort of stuff.
And that's something that we should be doing here. And we've brought that up at TI because they do those Doppler studies quite frequently, that should be multidisciplinary so everybody understands, because what you end up at the end of the day in terms of communication, you end up with midwives fighting with doctors, like, why are you inducing rah, 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 rah. Yeah. But lack of understanding creates that. Whereas if we all sat there and we all had a really good understanding of those flows and those studies, and we could see that there's a regurgitation, we're like, oh yeah, I get it. You know,
like baby Georgie, the midwife didn't understand the Doppler flows. I had shitty Doppler flows, and I'm like, no, I can see.
And why? Could they tell you why?
So my low papae led to placenta issues, which led to a growth restricted baby.
So then so when I was looking at Rhiannon's thing the other day, and she's got that notching in my head then before this, I was like, well, there's obviously some backflow.
Or there's blood going
there's
elsewhere,
pressure,
so you're not.
There's pressure, or there's something that's causing it not to just be smooth. Yeah? So I'm
increased resistance.
Yeah, I said I can't understand things but don't know the words.
Yeah.
Was I right?
I had a client called Jacqueline Gibson, and she had high blood pressure at the outset, and she had diastolic notching, and she ended up in Townsville because the baby was tiny.
If you think about it, think about a vessel.
Some sort of
think about a vessel that's made of like collagen. So you've got tissue there that allows you to dilate or constrict a vessel. So think about a vessel that won't because it's abnormally been made. So you've got this resistance in the vessel to be able to dilate to increase blood flow. So you have that, so you get increased pressures inside because the blood's trying to be pushed through because the body's saying, I need more, and it's reducing things like adrenaline and stuff to give you more. So you're getting this increased flow, and all you're doing is getting increased resistance because there's no movement of vessel, which we're talking about now, or no movement or whatever's being impacted to allow for that increased blood flow. So where can the blood go at the end of the day? It's going to go back home. And that's where you get regurgitation.
Or is it called regurgitation?
No. No. And then you can call it whatever you want, backflow, regurgitation, whatever, and that's exactly what happens in your heart as well. And that pressure creates a physiological anomaly that just says, I've had enough and I've got nowhere else to go. So the coexistence of maternal disease such as preeclampsia may also influence the evolution of umbilical artery Doppler waveforms, suggesting that circulating vasoconstrictive anti-angiogenic factors such as SCIT may be responsible for the rapid evolution of abnormal umbilical artery Doppler in the context of severe or worsening maternal disease. You do not need to know the underpinning factor of what causes the vasoconstriction of the vessel. You need to understand that the vessel will vasoconstrict and that you're not going to get blood flow because of it. And we see that daily in our women that we just try and take bloods off. And the lady I had just last week or the week before is a prime example of that. And I put a GTM patch on her. The reason I put a GTM patch on her was to dilate her vessels, as well as giving oxazepam to calm her down, as well as putting her on nitrous when we took the blood.
Wow.
So, but the GTN, the point of the GTN was that her body's reaction, was to flight.
Yeah.
You know, so your fight or flight response, hers was to flight, and what happens was her vessels constricted, and you got nothing. So by putting GTN on, I was dilating the vessel and hoping that it would just pop up to the surface, or at least be able to feel. Because the first time I went in, I was going in by knowledge of anatomy. This is where your vessel should be. Didn't work for me. So finally, sudden thrombotic or hemorrhagic infarct superimposed on the background of chronic hypoxia may affect enough placental area to cause acute deterioration of umbilical artery Doppler waveforms. So what they're saying is that initially what we were talking about was that space between the placenta and the uterus and the fetus. And now they're talking about if there's been an event with the placenta, like an infarct or whatever's reducing the surface area of the placenta, is also going to cause deterioration of that waveform. Okay, because you've again reduced your blood flow. So you're going to, or you've reduced diameters, you've reduced the amount of cells and vessels that will work. So therefore you're going to increase resistance.
Can we click here to see?
Yeah.
See if it works, please. That.
What does that tell you?
University.
I don't understand what it means by reverse.
Can someone interpret that?
No, I can't.
Neither can I.
Oh, okay.
I'm not in a position where my role extends to interpreting Doppler flows. So again, having a multidisciplinary team that sits down and is able to discuss those things would increase our improved knowledge on that.
See, I see it in my head like an arterial line has a notch.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine that the flow would look like it's got a notch.
There's a certain amount of positive flow and then there's a certain amount of negative flow. So they measure in a number what it should be. I can't even tell you what the ranges are, but there's a certain amount that it should be, that it tells you that you've got like a good Doppler, and then you'll see, you can have reverse ones where all you can see is the negative and there's nothing on the positive, so it's telling you there's regurgitation. So that's the extent of my knowledge on Dopplers.
Yeah.
And it's not something I've ever had to, and even working in a high risk unit, it's not something I've ever had to.
Truly, we used to talk about it all the time, particularly when it got busy.
Yeah. No.
We had to make decisions around prioritising, yeah?
But did you have to interpret the flow yourself?
No, we
or
had-
was it
we-
interpreted
we-
for you?
Yeah, no, that there were numbers and we were talking about degrees and, yeah. Me, Heather, personally, no, because their photos are taken.
Yeah.
Doppler flows are done by the ultrasonographer.
So you just look at the numbers.
Look at the numbers and look at the pictures. Like,
But what-
like in there.
But even then, like, what's that telling you?
But that's such a long time ago.
Yeah. But it's not the norm.
But that's
It's
I'm
not,
finding
yeah,
that
so it's
interesting.
not the norm.
So
It might be not, like having Dopplers on a high risk is normal.
Yes.
Having AFIs on high risk is normal.
Yeah.
Sitting down as a multidisciplinary team and interpreting it to work out what the woman's care plan is not.
Isn't that
So
fabulous
normally,
then?
medicine will make the
10 years
decision. Medicine will make that decision and just tell you that this is what's happening, or you get told by frogs for here that she would have to go to Cairns. So there's no great understanding for us of the Doppler, which I think is really poor. Because we need to, we need to move with those things.
This was 10 years ago, and I'm in charge of the labour ward, and we need to make decisions around who comes in, who goes out, whether that we stop the prostate on the ward here because we've got this one that's admitted, and so we were making those decisions.
We're making decisions based on CTG and being
that
told what
makes sense too, though.
we were being told what, like she's got low Doppler, or she's got a regurgitation.
But you're actually involved in the
Absolutely,
decision.
because I'm in charge of the labour ward, so I need to know why I'm going to stop that bloody.
What about all your midwives?
Sorry, same.
Yeah.
Because.
It would be interesting to go back and see from their perception
Yeah,
how many of them
but
actually understood it, or were just saying, oh, okay, yeah, no worries. They've told us that it's got poor Doppler flow, so therefore it's got to be induced.
No, well, all the midwives can't be an because they're in caring, so there's that sort
Exactly. So that's where
that
I'm coming
leads
from. Like,
discussion.
I wasn't in a position where I would have had those conversations. I would have been caring for a woman inversely.
Yes.
You know, and it certainly wasn't something that was thought as part of the multidisciplinary discussions at all.
Okay.
And they might, even when we used to have our M&Ms, and we never did Dopplers, ever.
Okay.
We did lots on CTG, and even when you go to Font in New South Wales, there's nothing on Dopplers. Well, there wasn't when I last did Font, and that was about 5 years ago. So it was all on CTG and looking at
What's
maternal,
Font?
fetal